We've got special guest Matthew. Welcome, Matthew.
Thanks for having me.
Good to have you with us. Matthew's the founder of WhaleSync, and we'll be sharing some cool stuff that he's been building with Airtable later in the show. I'll first walk us through what we're going to be talking about today. We'll start with Round the Bases, get you up to date on all the news, updates, and ongoings in the world of Airtable and the different communities around Airtable. Then a quick sponsor highlight on OnToAir backups. And then Matthew's going to show us a tools directory about AI tools that he's built and stored in Airtable and how that works. And then Ali's going to walk us through global variables, how to use summary rollups to utilize global variables in your base. And then just highlight how you can join our community and be a part of the fun. And then Camille's going to walk us through a brand new, fresh, off the press feature, automation secrets. So excited to see that as well. So with that, let's start with our Round the Bases. First, if you were getting a bug last week with interfaces and not being able to share with people, there was a bug. We actually saw this at our agency. We were running into this. And so basically, if you had a button that called an automation and the user did not have base level access, the button was being grayed out. And so that was not a feature change. That was a bug. I think they did fix it later that day. So if you ran into that, you weren't alone.
Probably. I wouldn't be surprised if it happened while they were adding the new automation secrets.
Maybe.
Well, they made an adjustment to dashboards last week, and I feel like someone might have knocked something over accidentally and stood it back up.
Yeah, there's a couple issues. Ali's dealing with some other automation issues, bugs.
Weird stuff.
Yep. Okay, as far as what's new, there's a couple of things since last week. This one came in under April, I think the end of April. So this was an enterprise level change. They basically allowed, made their permissions a bit more granular. So you can have permissions for different admin users. So you could have an admin user that can just manage user configuration. And then there's integration. So user admins that can handle integration changes, brand changes. So changing the logo or whatnot. And then, so those are those. And then you still have the super admin that can do them all. So they kind of just made their enterprise permissions a bit more granular. Set that up. Next one. Okay, use managed components with existing apps. So this is nice because sometimes you're like, oh, I built this cool app and I want to make it a managed component, but you couldn't do it. Is that right? Like you couldn't make it managed?
Yeah, so what you could do is you could build a base like normal, and then you can convert that. You can add that as a managed app or parts of it as managed components, but it doesn't take the thing you originally built and turn it into an instance. Right. So this is, I think, still not that, I don't think. What it says is that when you are installing a custom component into an existing app, what you can do is say, the example they're given is a formula field that comes with it two fields, a start and an end date. And the formula gives you like a date range or whatever. If you're installing that component into an existing app, if you already have a start date and end date, you don't have to add two brand new fields, which was a pain point for me and for many others. You can say, use these existing fields I already have, but bring in this new formula that, outputs that date range. So I was doing a little bit of quick testing this morning. I wasn't able to get it to work. It does say that you have to re-release your managed component in order for it to be able to do this update where you can use existing fields. But they have screenshots of a screen I wasn't able to get to. So I'm sure it's there. I just wasn't able to figure out exactly how to do this with a component that I made months prior. Maybe brand new components are easier to have this done. I still need to do some testing, but the general idea, this is my biggest complaint about managed components, was I already have a start field. I don't want to start over. But this is a pretty nice upgrade if I can get it to work.
Nice. Cool. So that's helpful. Yeah. All right. One more along the same lines. Customize sync source and managed app and components. So this is something that I ran into. So basically, when you create a managed app, if that managed app has a data sync to a view, you could not, it was locked. And so you couldn't change that view to be another one. So now they made it to where you can create an instance of a managed app and then change the view. It has to be from the same table of where the source is, but you can change it to a different view. So that's really nice if you have like parent child, but you want the child to have different subsets of data from the parent. You can now change it to different views. So you can have all these views at the parent for each of the children and then modify them. So we had that exact use case. So this was a nice addition.
It's exciting. I haven't played with managed apps or components at all yet, and I really need to. I'm excited about where this is headed.
Yeah, they're kind of a must if you're in a very large organization, hence why they're enterprise scale features. And these were like very, like, they were immovable problems when trying to implement them in at least some of the builds that I've been a part of. And these two improvements make them much more viable to use for things that are already in flight. For brand new projects, it wasn't a big deal because there's nothing to convert really. But unless your company started yesterday, you probably have something that's already in place, and it's nice to be able to have this option to change the specific sync source or to say use this existing field instead of having to rebuild everything from scratch.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Cool. And then, not on here yet, but released, it looks like to everybody. I think everybody has access to secret keys or values inside of automations. And so that's a new feature that you can check out. And Camille later in the show is going to walk us through that one. So hold on for that. All right. A couple other new changes or features. This one was not a new feature, but it looks like they added information to let you know that who is going to get notifications on errors. So this was always like the running, issue of like, who actually gets notified when there's an error in an automation. And it was whoever last toggled it on or off. And that was kind of like this secret, only people who tested it knew that, but now they're putting a notification so at least you know who's getting it.
They changed also, like on the left-hand sidebar, it used to say how many runs happened in the last month underneath all the automations, and now it says who was the last person to update it, so you can quickly see who's getting those emails. But
they took away the runs.
Yeah, I'd rather see the runs. That's way more important to me. Like,
I'd like to see both. Not to sound greedy. I think those are both important pieces of information, especially since there's a hard limit to the number of automations. I think it's at the workspace level, but how many can run in a given month? So,
yeah,
weird. It's a weird thing to do.
Weird choices, but I mean, I think it's important to see both. It used to be, I'm pretty sure if you mouse over the automation, you get more info, like who created it or who updated it. I can't remember which, but I don't know. They could move some more information to that. I think that'd be great.
Yeah. But anyways, one small step. Okay, here's another one. Scott mentioned this. There's a teaser from the Airtable community. Looks like
It's at the bottom. It's
okay.
the last line.
Is this what she's talking about here? Is not necessarily new, right? There's nothing new here.
Well, they added, I think we already talked about this, but they added a few new view types to the dashboard layout.
For the numbers, yeah. Okay.
And
Yeah.
they turned on editing for the dashboards. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I hadn't even seen that yet.
Yeah, so if you have a list view, I haven't tested with the other view types, but you can edit from a dashboard, which is nice.
Like
That's very nice.
That is good.
That's been a blocker for me several times, so I'm excited about that.
And you can now add calendar and Kanban to a dashboard. Was that not there before?
Nope.
Yeah, not really.
Okay.
Still no grid.
Well,
The one view type that that summarizes data already, not there on a dashboard.
is this a grid or a list? That's a list.
That's a list.
And I really want pivot tables not on a dashboard. Anywhere
I
else.
wrote a comment on that in this thread.
I want my pivot table.
Yeah. So it also hinted one of our top requests from the community next week, which would be this week. So stay tuned. So the guess is dark mode. That's what people are guessing.
Well, yes. So that's the guess. And for the astute observer, you might have noticed that the styling for if you edit an automation, you can see, like, I think this person pointed it out, but the colors are very slightly different. And I suspect if it really is dark mode, that's to make things higher contrast, which you need if you want to be able to toggle between light and dark mode for stuff to still be legible. So this is kind of the pattern of Airtable releases where they'll put out something that seems random all by itself for a week, 2 weeks, sometimes a whole month, and then suddenly a new feature comes that's like dependent on the previous thing, but they don't release at the same time.
Yeah. Yesterday, while I was messing with automations, I noticed this change. And then partway through building the automation, it changed again to different icons that were all just like blue, black, and white, like no color at all. Like they got rid of like and I got so used to the colors, like the green for the update records and the orange for the find records. So when that happened, I was like, whoa, what's happening? Like, I don't know what's going on, but they changed it back. So
yeah. I was editing something. I went to lunch. I came back and the colors were different. And I was like, am I losing my mind? I was just here.
Yeah,
they must be doing some CSS. Cool. Well, we'll see. That might come later today, maybe. Find out. All right. Next one from LinkedIn. A couple events if you're a customer of Airtable or partner. Looks like in a couple weeks there'll be Airtable Paris. I don't know, maybe need to fly out to Paris for that.
And a little more notice.
Yeah. This is the first I saw that one. June 24th in LA. I don't know, anybody gonna be at that one? We got some LA.
I'm gonna be there.
I think I might need to make the trip.
Yeah. I might be out there as well. I don't know, Ali, if you'll fly across the country for that one.
Hey, my brother lives in LA. Maybe I'll hit him up and be like, hey, I'll come visit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll see you out there for that one coming up. Put it on the calendar. You gotta register here. So link to register. This is one I always like to see interviews with C-suite executives at Airtable. This is with the CFO. This is the first I've heard the name for the CFO. So Amberine Tabasi, CFO at Airtable, just kind of talking. I think I don't think it's Airtable specific, but if you like to meet the executives at Airtable, there's an interview we'll link to. Okay, some AI news. Anthropic, which is, I've heard Claude or Cloud. I've heard people pronounce it both ways.
I say Claude.
Yeah.
Me too.
I think like the French name is Cloud. I don't know. I don't speak French, but somebody told me that that was the proper way to say it. Somebody on YouTube was saying it that way. I saw. Anyways, they now have connections, integrations, they call it. And so they're connecting different systems. So through your chat, you can connect different systems. They don't list Airtable as one of their first 10, although they do list Zapier, so you can get to it through Zapier. My guess is Airtable will be added shortly.
They do list Linear, which I happen to very much like.
Okay, I'm not familiar with that one.
Linear is similar to Jira. It's in the same product sphere as Jira. I don't know. I like it better.
Okay.
Yeah, we use Linear. They're fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, very cool. I'll have to check that one out.
They're also self-hostable.
Okay. Okay, next one. Similar, Zapier had a big announcement with their AI workflow capabilities. So let's see, intelligent AI processing that's built right into your Zaps. So it looks like kind of agents built into Zaps. I know they already had this, but I saw a couple people talking about this. Big announcements. I don't know if anybody's familiar with what they're adding.
Now, gotta be honest, I have not touched Zapier in I think 3 years.
Yeah. So yeah, so there's some improvements there. Okay, this one was interesting. We'll find out, Matthew, if this company is in your list, but Reducto it caught my interest because they mentioned Airtable is one of their customers. So if you ever wondered, so what they do is they help companies convert all your documents into your LLM or your vector database to be addressable or ingested so that it can be processed by your AI agents. And so all of the documents that you put into your Airtable attachments, this is how Airtable converts them and makes them usable by their AI elements. So basically they support all the different file types and everything. So if you want to know how Airtable AI works under the hood, this is one of the pieces to that. That is cool. Okay, last one. We'll end with this. So this I think originally comes from AI lead at AWS at Amazon, and just kind of talking about like AI is cool, but if your data is bad, it doesn't matter, how cool your agent builds are. So it's got a nice. You've got bad data and you add machine learning to it, it's still bad data. With artificial intelligence, it might look good, but it's still bad. Generative turns it into a unicorn. And then agentic AI, just different versions of crap.
Garbage in, garbage out.
That's right.
Yep.
That's it. So make sure your data is good. All right. With that, if you are running your business on Airtable, it's best practice to have your data backed up and stored outside of Airtable. Onto Air Backups helps you store your data in Box, Dropbox, Google Drive, and OneDrive, as well as your schema and attachments, and also has restore capabilities. So check it out at ontoair.com. Use promo code BuiltOnAir for a discount and get started today backing up your data. Okay, similar one. Matthew, why don't you give us a little bit of context? You were on the show a few years ago and we kind of heard your story. So if you want to hear Matthew's background and how he came into this, we'll have that in our log history. But give us some context, give us an update quickly on your company, and then we'll learn what you built and can share with us.
Absolutely, yeah. I can give you the very quick rundown, but I'm one of the co-founders of WhaleSync. We went through YC in summer 21. And basically, we're a two-way sync data tool that connects apps like Airtable with other apps like HubSpot, Salesforce, Webflow, Supabase. We're even doing two-way syncs between two Airtable bases. And what I thought could be cool to share today is we actually just built an Airtable base to power a directory we built of AI tools. And so I'll show it in a sec, but basically the Airtable base is essentially our backend database. It stores now over 1,000 different AI products. Reducto, like you mentioned, is one of them. We use our own tool, WhaleSync, to sync that with Webflow, which is a website builder, and then display those. And then we're doing a little bit of our own AI tooling on the background to automatically sort of fill out the Airtable base. So when we add a new tool, instead of having to go research it and come up with a description for it, we have AI, an AI agent essentially that's going out and researching and finding all that, taking screenshots of the website so that we can add AI tools at scale.
Very cool. All right. If you want to share your screen.
Yeah, let me go ahead and share. Let me go ahead and I'm going to share the whole screen here, and you can tell me if it's big enough there. Do you see my screen?
Yeah, now we see the full screen. Yep.
Perfect. We'll go full screen. Cool. So feel free to kind of point me in the direction that you guys think would be most interesting, but I'll give the high-level overview. This is our AI tools base. Like I mentioned, it's got now over 1,300 different AI tools. This is the backend database that, again, is being synced with Webflow, with WhaleSync, to this website page here. So everything in that Airtable base is corresponding to one of these different tools. All of that, because of Airtable and the way that it has things like URLs and tagging. So we're using linked records here to tag each of these with like a tag and a role. I can come over to my website and say, let's just filter for, customer support tools, right? Or I can get rid of that or say, let's filter for just AI chatbots, things of that nature. So that's sort of the fundamental piece of how this all works. A couple other things I'll call out. So one is, I mentioned that sort of AI bit. If we want to add something new to this space, I'll go on Product Hunt today and just sort of grab the first new AI tool that comes up. We'll call this one Explorium. And I can basically grab, that might not be a good one. Let's do one that has a little more of a descriptive homepage. That'll be a little more interesting. So we take this one, 0, right? New AI tool for prospecting leads. I can copy that, put it into here, pop it into my new Airtable base, and put this into to-do. By marking this as to-do, I'm basically telling our AI to run it through our system. It's automatically going to open up the web page, scrape it, and get all of sort of the details that are in it, send that over to AI, sort of run a little bit of, again, AI magic here, and in about 30 seconds or less here, it's going to fill in the summary, the description, the tags, and a role. On top of that, what you'll notice is I've hooked that up to Airtable automations. So as the AI sort of spits out a tag or a role, we want that to actually be corresponding to the linked record here in these other roles and tags pages. So I have an automation, which we can talk about as well, that basically listens for those updates and automatically, does the corresponding one with the linked record. There's a little bit of logic there to just make sure it doesn't accidentally delete data and things of that nature. We can talk about too. But that's the fundamental way this works. And then maybe I'll just add, lastly, we're also using, the pretty standard extension here of just deduping. So, as this happens, we have a handful of people on the team that are working on this. Sometimes they don't know, or I don't know that someone's added a tool. We use the dedupe pretty extensively to just, make sure we don't accidentally create duplicates. But that's the high-level overview. I'll pause and let me know what's interesting to talk more about there.
Did I see an automated pop-up window that went to the website?
Yes.
What was starting that?
Yeah. So one of our teammates, Joel, is our head of growth, basically used something called Playwright. I think it's Playwright, if I'm not mistaken. That basically is a developer tool that was built into our agent. And whenever you add a new website, so let's do another one here. Let's see if Swaddle will work. That, AI that we've built, again, it's nothing like crazy. It's a sort of a small script essentially. But I can come in here, call this Swaddle.
Running like on your local computer, or?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
So I'll just, to get a little technical here, I'll go over to cursor. You can kind of see the logs. It's processing a new cycle. It's automatically pulling up this screen, scraping everything it needs, taking screenshots of it, and then closing it. And then moving this to AI because it sort of scraped all the information, sending it to AI, and then once AI comes back with a summary, a description, and tags, you can kind of see it pop in automatically.
Gotcha. Very cool.
Um,
Did you
yeah.
mention you also are you using data fetcher extension?
We were, so I basically, before we had built our own little agent to do this, data fetcher was how we were going about this, and we're again, no affiliation, but big fans. We were basically having once we scraped all that information manually, we would use data fetcher to get an AI summary, description, and tagging by using their OpenAI connector.
Gotcha.
And again, if it wasn't for the fact that we built our own agent, we'd still be using them. They're still really good.
Yeah, very good. Very cool.
Yeah, and I'll just say last, of course, there's a lot going on here between, to build the whole, let's say, product of, the AI agent, the WhaleSync piece to connect it to Webflow, obviously the whole Webflow front end. But all of this would be, very, very difficult to do if it wasn't for this very easy Airtable spreadsheet here. That's sort of the backbone of all this. So we're obviously huge, huge fans of Airtable.
Yeah. Maybe give kind of a quick overview of how WhaleSync fits into this. So the data's in here. What does WhaleSync do from here?
Yeah. So let me I'll pull up our WhaleSync account really quickly here. But as I mentioned before, WhaleSync basically connects two different apps. So Airtable and HubSpot, Airtable Webflow, Airtable Notion, Airtable Superbase, or even again Airtable and Airtable. But if I open up this specific one, which is just the sync between this Airtable-based AI tools and our website, WhaleSync is essentially the connection between those two. So if we take, this is called tools. If we go here, we look at how this is hooked up. We basically are mapping each of the fields in this Airtable, so name and URL and summary, to a corresponding field in Webflow, and kind of setting the direction to two-way here. And WhaleSync basically just sort of sits in the background and listens. And now whenever data gets updated in this Airtable base, it automatically syncs to that Webflow site. And so literally, if I move this to active in another minute or two, this will show up and be live on our website, all sort of instantly. And again, this is Airtable Webflow is one example of how people use WhaleSync, but we use it for Airtable and Superbase. Airtable and Airtable is another really popular one. Obviously, if you're not on Airtable Enterprise or not have access to their two-way sync, that's another way that we've seen be fairly popular.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. Yeah, WhaleSync has been a cool tool to watch it grow and see all the new endpoints that you're adding.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Awesome. So if they want to find this directory, it's on your website and they can see the end result. Yeah.
Absolutely. So you can go to whalesync.com/tools/AI directory to see the directory. Obviously, if you want to try WhaleSync for any two-way syncing with Airtable, it's just whalesync.com. And I'll just say, feel free to come in here. Some people don't know it, but you can also just mess around here and say
that's awesome.
And sync to there.
Nice.
That's fun.
I love that.
Thanks.
Very cool. Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And let's move on. Okay, Ali, walk us through global variables.
All right. Let's see. Can you see my screen?
Not yet.
It says it's showing on mine. Let me stop and redo it. Let's see.
Oh wait. Yeah.
I just got rid of it. I'll put it back again.
Yeah. Sorry. There's two rows, so there was down below hidden.
I see. All right. Excellent. Okay, so what I'm about to talk about is something that is extremely powerful. There's some words of caution to be said about it, and I could literally talk about use cases with this all day, but I'm going to just pick one out to talk about. So there is this little trick you can do in Airtable, taking advantage of linked records. You may have heard people call this table a summary table or a utility table, utility record, etc. There's a lot of really cool things you can do with it. So what does that mean? let's say I want to get the average grade of all of my students. This is a base of students and classes. It's the same base I used at Airtable this past year. And let's say I want to get the average grade of all of my students, this 78.9 here, at the bottom of my summary bar. And then say I want to know what students are above that average and what students are below that average. But I want that in a field so that I can use it as a filter. It's not super easy to do, right? One thing I could do is I could create a formula field on this table and just say that the answer is 78.9, so that every single record has that value on it. And now I can do a calculation to be like, it's the average grade of this student, higher or lower, bigger or smaller than the actual average grade of the class. But the second someone's grade changes, this 79 is not going to be accurate anymore. And I'm going to have to go back and update my formula every time I want to do this check or do this calculation. So that's not good enough for me. I want it to be dynamic and have it so that I never have to worry about touching it. It'll just always show me if somebody's above or below the average. So how can we do that? Well, what I like to do is I might create a formula field and just type in any word. Sometimes I use emojis for this as well, just like something fun. And now I have a field where every single record has the same value on it. If I then take that, edit that field, and link it to another record, and I'm going to create a new table and just call it summary. So now I have every single record on this table linked to my summary table. And on my summary table, I just have one record that's linked to every single student in my base. Now, what I usually do as the first step after that is to create an automation and say it's going to be called link students to summary, because I want to make sure that every single record on my students table always is linked to that summary table. And I don't want people have to worry. I don't want users to have to worry about making sure that that link is in place. I don't want them really even to ever see it, because a lot of people get confused when they see it. They're like, what is this? But I'm just going to set up an automation on the students table where summary is empty. And then very simply create an update step on the students table for the record that triggered the automation. And I'm just going to fill in that summary field with the word summary. So that way, if I add a new student, side note, if you group your view by that, every time you add something, it'll also be linked to that record. So that's one way of going about it. That's how I used to do this before automations were a thing. But if I add a new record, it will get linked to summary. If I delete the summary link from somebody, it gets put back. So it's just always there. Little housekeeping thing. But now let's talk about where the magic happens. So like I said, there's a lot of really cool, powerful stuff you can do now that we have this table and record and in place. But let's say we're going to follow that path that I talked about at the beginning. So I'm going to add a roll up and say average grade for my students. And technically this is an average of an average, but let's not get into the math that significantly. I'm going to say if average values, because otherwise if I don't do the if statement, it will error if I have nothing in that field, because it can't do an average of 0. So there's our 78.9. And now when I go back to my students table, now because I have every record linked to that record that has that number on it, I can now use that number as a global variable And this is going to be the average grade, like school-wide. Now I've got this number on every single record, and I could do a formula field and compare that to my average. And we could say if average grade is, let's say, greater than or equal to the average grade school-wide, we'll say above average, otherwise below average. And I'm going to use my new favorite feature here. I am obsessed with this feature. It is very useful to be able to have this displayed as single select option. So now I can filter using a dropdown without having to remember the exact words I typed. We'll say above or below average. Now we can see very quickly who's above and below. But let's just say one of those grades is going to change. If we go to the enrollments table, let's bring somebody who is failing up to an A. Let's see. We'll do 98. So now that should maybe bring our average up. Yeah, now it's 79.2. So this person who was previously below, I think, now is above. But that will all change dynamically as I'm adding my data, adding enrollment records, changing grades, adding grades, etc. And I never have to worry about making sure that that stays in line. There's a lot more you can do with this. Another one of my favorite use cases is like you could have, all your summary data for the whole students table on this record, and use this to send automated emails, mark it up with HTML, etc. There's a million things. I could go on and on and on. But one thing I will caution is that if you have a lot of data, and I'm talking like hundreds of thousands of records, like if you're approaching 100K, this method is a little bit dangerous. It does have the potential to impact your performance. So definitely use it with caution. And if you notice things starting to slow down, it's probably because you're using this method. But if you've got a small data set, it's totally worth it. Very easy and useful.
Yep. That's definitely a useful strategy.
Super cool. That was awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, that's a really fun one. Oh, the other thing really cool that's just to show is if you do, like, say you want to trigger an automation off to like send an email to everybody on that students table, you could use this record as that as well. Because if you update this record to something and then you look up that value, so like say your trigger is when this select field is send, I want to send an email to everybody. You can set this one record to send, and then that automatically triggers all the records on this table as well. So just some building blocks to help you understand why this table is so powerful.
Good stuff. All right. Build for Airtable, dynamic summary data, great demo, Ali. Excellent. Okay, if you are an Airtable user or want to learn about Airtable, BuiltOnAir is the place for you. Join us at our builtonair.com/join. That will get you access to our newsletter and our free Slack community. And thousands of Airtable users are in there talking every day all about Airtable, helping each other out. So check us out, builtonair.com. With that, let's finish with Camille. Show us your secrets.
So this is a new feature in Airtable that was just released in the past week or so, and I'm going to go over a very simple example and then some things about it that annoy me. But at a high level, typical problem that you might run across in automation scripts is you have an instance where you need to include an API key or a token or sometimes even a password or something to access an fetch call or something like that within the body of the script. And one way or another, you'd have whatever that token is visible to anyone who can open up the automations tab of the base. So I work in a lot of different teams where we're trying to push people more to just be in the interfaces where need be, but there are still a lot of people who can get access to the base, which means you can, even if you don't have the ability to edit the automation, you'd be able to look at and see, oh, hey, the API token is 12345. I'm going to use that for my own purposes, which is not great. And the other thing is, if you have that API token console logged at some point during the automation, it would show up in the output of the script. So those are some pretty significant security risks when using scripted actions within an automation. And there are a lot of automation platforms that you can use in conjunction with Airtable that have solved this problem already with the concept of secrets, where you put the API token or the password or other credentials someplace safe within that platform, and you're able to reuse them in multiple different automations without it being visible on the automation itself. So that's been in place with other tools like Make and Zapier and N8N and all the other ones as well for a while. And now Airtable has given the ability to have something similar in their own native automation platform. So first things first, you'll notice that there is a undismissible alert at the top of your script. Great. Inputs are now collapsible, so you can get to the secrets area. I already have my secret added in here, but I'm going to go over how to create a new secret versus using one that exists already. If I know my secret doesn't exist, I could create add new secret from here, or you can go out of here and go to Builder Hub. I'll go there really quickly just so that you can see. And under developers, you wouldn't go down to secrets, and here are all of your stored secrets. You'd be able to see the number of scripts this particular secret is used in. You can't see which scripts those are, but you can see the number, which I guess is useful. Collaborators, if you are on an enterprise plan and can use groups, you can share the secret to more than one person rather than just yourself, which is handy if you're part of a developer team. But going back to my script, I can say I want a new secret, and I could call this is my password, and I can add a password here. This is all gibberish. And then again, if you're on the enterprise plan, you'd be able to say, instead of just me, add this user group as well. And clicking add will add it to your list of global secrets that you can use, not just here, but in other scripts as well. I'm going to cancel and instead add an existing secret. So I just called mine example. It gives you a little pop-up that says what the name is, who created it, and when. Something I notice is if you create a secret immediately, it'll say unknown for about like 10 minutes before it recognizes who actually created it. I'm going to hit use, and then that's now added. And same thing like with regular inputs, I can give it a name. So the name that it's going to come in with by default is going to be whatever you named the secret in general. I'm going to call this API token for consistency and comment out this one just so that I only have one instance of a variable called API token in my script. So now the benefit of this is I have my simple little fetch request going to Airtable's API to get a list of bases, and I can use that API token coming from my secrets in order to have a successful return out of this API. So after I hit test, you can see that I was able to get information out of that API call that I just made, but the secret value is not shown in the console log, which is great, again, for security. If I ever need to see what that secret is, I could go back to Builders Hub and look at it there rather than it being permanently put in the history log of this script's run. This still says 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 because it is still an input in my script that I've left in for demonstration purposes. So all of that is very useful. There are some things that just really annoy me about how this was implemented. Number one, I tend to destructure my input variables coming from input.config. So it comes in that format if you do destructuring, curly braces, and then if I had several inputs, which I oftentimes do, they would all be comma separated here, destructured out of input.config. You can't do that with input.secret. I don't know why. You'll notice that they look very similar. Both of them are functions, but secret cannot be destructured. That's annoyance number one. Annoyance number two is these two inputs for if you want to add a secret, I find a little bit hard to get used to, namely because when I click add new secret, I'm expecting it to work the same as add input variable, where I click that and I start to give it a name and then a value. Whereas here, it's always creating a brand new secret. And if I want to use something existing, I have to use the search function. I only have one secret, which is why it's not allowing me to add another existing one. I would have preferred if it had a similar implementation as input config variables, which are right above them, where I could click the plus and maybe there's an option under secrets similar to base structure where I pick whichever, pretend that's the name of a secret. I could do that in order to grab it into the script. You can't do that. Another thing, if I want to delete an input variable, there's a trash icon right next to, it's in the top right of the grouping for that variable. Click that and it's gone. If you want to delete a secret, it's underneath and it's the word remove. So I could do that to remove it and it gives me a warning. They kept this here because removing this secret from the script does not delete the secret. It's still in my Builders Hub. I can use it for another script if I want. But it's just a very different experience adding a secret versus adding an input token, despite them being right next to each other and only available in the exact same context. So you can only add these in scripted actions within an automation, and you can only add these in a scripted action of an automation, but they're implemented very differently in terms of UI, and not being able to destructure is upsetting because if you had multiple secrets, you have multiple lines that start to look like this, which is not how I like to have my code written. So it's a good feature. I'm glad it's there. I am annoyed at the way that it was implemented for a variety of reasons.
Yeah. And then the feature when you add new, click on the add new secret icon. Mm-hmm. And so it's just weird that the collaborators, it gives you a choice, but not give you a choice.
Yeah.
And so it's always just me. So if you have other users, so no other user can use it unless you're on enterprise?
Yes. And I think it's because it's implemented using user groups rather than, you can't select individual people to share it to. You select user groups, and user groups are only available to enterprise.
I think on enterprise, I think I looked at mine and you can add individuals or groups on enterprise.
Well, never mind.
But
If that's the case, the one I first used it on, I used a user group, so maybe that's what I'm remembering.
never mind. No, it's just user groups. You're right.
Okay. Yeah, but the other thing that I'll go over, if you start to use a secret, any secret, in the scripted action, so I'll go back and add example. Now that this is in here, I know I'm the only person who can use it anyway. If someone else were to edit this or attempt to edit this automation, they wouldn't be able to edit it because they themselves have no access to the secret itself. So that is an interesting way of further locking down who should have access to edit certain things. There are a lot of times where my stakeholders are perfectly capable of writing their own copy for the send email actions in an automation, but I don't want them to get inside this script, not even outside of, I don't want them to see the API token. I also don't want them to mess up the script. So you could use this feature as a way of saying, don't edit this. You're no longer able to edit this because there is a secret in it. Something that I haven't been able to test because, again, I'm the only person who can edit this secret anyway, is if I go back to that warning message, to keep secret values hidden, script editing will be limited to the subset of collaborators across this and any other secrets in the script. I haven't been able to test if that limits editing just the script itself, the scripted action, or if it limits editing the whole automation. This implies that it limits editing just the scripted action, which is great. But again, it's something I haven't been able to verify myself necessarily.
Very cool. Yes, useful, especially in the enterprise world, to lock down and make sure your secrets are safe. So
Yep.
That's awesome.
This is also documented. If you click learn more, it opens up this. Annoyingly, this is improper syntax. It should put the parentheses afterwards to once again reinforce that it is a function. It does it correctly over here, but not here. Again, I'm very annoyed with how this was implemented.
I think my thought is they probably did that on purpose so that you don't get like all the secrets, although it should show you only the ones that you specify in the config.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the way input config works. I don't know why. I don't know why they did it different. But if you have questions, they are written down here.
Yeah. Very good. All right. Yeah,
they
go ahead.
wrote this the way that they wrote under important notes. It says referencing secrets in your script will lock editing to only users who can access those secrets. That the way they phrase that, I feel like it should be the opposite. It just sounds like the users who can access those secrets will be locked out. Like, I don't know. I got confused reading that. I was like, I don't think that's what they mean for it to say. But
yeah. Sounds good. Thank you for sharing that. And that concludes today's show. Thank you all. Check out Matthew and whalesync.com, and we will see you all next week. Have a good week.
thank you.
Thanks, everyone.